This is the last topic for lesson 17, 17C, which is troubleshoot workstation security issues. What are malware vectors? Well, let's talk about different. All of these programs are grouped into what is called malicious or malware software. First are viruses. So viruses are infects executable image and runs on execution. In other words, if a file is infected, when you double click on that file, whatever that may be, then it will infect that computer, but it's you need to run that file. So that's what viruses are. Now, viruses are divided into several different types, and you need to know these differences for the A plus certification exam. Okay, this is extremely important because a lot of the questions will be tailored specifically to the type of virus. For example, a boot sector virus, as the name implies, infects disk media and runs at boot or on attachment to a computer. So when you boot your computer, these are really dangerous because, again, as soon as you boot up your computer would be infected, and getting rid of these viruses it's extremely difficult. Trojans. Trojans are concealed within installer for legitimate software. So Trojans are viruses that you download a movie, you download a song, you download a picture. You think that you are downloading a legitimate software. So a lot of the viruses that you get nowadays are Trojans because they want to trick you into thinking that you have a legitimate software. So if you go to some of those pirates sites out there and you try to download pirate software, they are full with viruses, with Trojans that disguise as legitimate software. Gotta be careful with that. Worms are kind of a type of malware that infects processes in system RAM and can spread over the network ports. So if you get infected with a worm, you don't have to do anything. The computer will infect the computer and maybe the entire network so they propagate by themselves. Once you get infected, you don't need to click on anything. So these are really dangerous. Another type of really dangerous software is what's called fileless malware. There's no file and there's nothing on it, right? Um, so it uses local scripting technologies like PowerShell or JavaScript, which are part of the operating system, to create malicious processes in memory. So what that means is that they are running while the computer is on in memory. That's why it is very important that nowadays that if you're not using a computer and you don't need to use it, just turn it off. Now, yes, it is convenient to have your laptop on all the time because you can use it, but at least at night when you go to sleep, just turn it off or reboot your computer constantly because anything that's in memory, if it's in memory and you reboot the computer, it will be gone unless they have created some kind of a task or they have put something into that are you can put this malware software in the registry of the computer or create a scheduled task that they run every time you boot your computer. In that case, it doesn't really matter. But if something is in memory and it's not a schedule, by rebooting the computer, then that would help. But anyway, so all of these are different type of malicious software that you must be aware for the A plus certification exam. Continuing with malware payloads, backdoors. What are backdoors? They are remote access trojans or rats and bots, right? That are created so that the bad guys can go back into your computer. Right? They call what is called a command and control, a CNC network. So a lot of these big attacks in which data is exfiltrated, it happens like this. So your computer is infected, they leave a rat or a remote access Trojan, right? And then they create this command and control, which the bad guy has control of, which again may be other infected machines. Most of the time, it's not going to be the legitimate machine, right? They want to disguise everything. Um, So you gotta be careful with that kind of stuff. Spyware and keyloggers is malware that records user and system activity, right? Like a keylogger, for example. So there may be software on a computer, if your computer is infected, that everything you type in, including your username and password, can be recorded, and then that can be sent to the malicious user. There are tons of software out there that allows you to do that, including the keylogger. Imagine, for example, you work in an office and I don't know, in a high security company, and a malicious person get a hold of someone who works in the cleaning of those systems. Say, hey, listen, I'm gonna pay you. Take this USB drive, put it, go into the office of the CEO of the company, put that USB, leave it there, and then tomorrow you'll give it back to me, and I'll give you $10,000. Okay, that has happened. That happens a lot. So, and basically, or they could say, okay, connect this into the keyboard. Okay, I have the tendency that now and then I look at my computer and I check my keyboard and I unplug it and to see, or if you use a wired keyboard, right? So that's why using wireless keyboard and mouse, it's even better. But I constantly check my computer at office to see if there's any USB device connected that I don't recognize. I mean, I'm paranoid when it comes to that kind of stuff, because I know that things happens all the time. And obviously, especially because of the type of environment where I work, where I work in a highly secure environment. But in either case, these are some of the things that we are living nowadays, right? So rootkits are really, really bad kind of malware that if you get infected with rootkits, the only choice you have is to completely wipe out your computer malware. But anyway, so rootkits are malware that elevates privileges to run at the highest possible level of trust. So in other words, if you have a rootkit, the rootkit will elevate privilege to run as the root if you're on Linux, or as the administrator if you are in a Windows computer. And so they make use of any local process that are potentially bad and unreliable. So again, make sure you pay attention to these key terms, because you are going to be tested about this on the exam. Ransomware and crypto miners are very popular nowadays. Ransomware, it's malware that disables access to data and files on a system shell, and then the company have to pay to get a decryption key. So this happens all the time. Hospitals, schools, businesses, the government, where the data is encrypted, and you will get something like that. If you get a screenshot like that, that's really bad. And depending on the systems, right, where they will give you instructions on the screen how to get it, where to pay, etc. That kind of stuff. Obviously, the money is always paid in virtual currency, especially in Bitcoin. It's one of the most popular. But again, ransomware is one of the most difficult things to deal with, one of the most common attack vectors nowadays. Now, keep in mind that ransomware needs to enter your computer somehow, right? And one common vector is email phishing, right? Yes, if you find a USB in a parking lot and you put it in your computer, that way you could get infected as well. It could have been that a malicious person just left that USB drive for you to pick up and put in your computer. But again, the easiest way is to send you a phishing email, hoping that you will click on that email and then infecting your computer. And so crypto miner is malware that hijacks the computer resources to generate cryptocurrency for the packet of the malicious person, or the malicious guy. What you would notice is that your computer may run slower or not perform as well, and it could be because of that. So again, make sure your computer is clean. Be careful the sites that you visit. Make sure that you have your antivirus up to date, and that you do not download software from unreliable sites, and that you are extremely careful when you click on an attachment or go to a link that is sent on an email. Okay, very, very careful about those things. So how do we troubleshoot some desktop symptoms, performance symptoms, for example, right? Faulty or slow startup or general performance. If your system has been working fine and all of a sudden it's not performing as it used to be, well, you gotta find out. You gotta check what's going on. What have you done lately? Check your antivirus software. It's it up to date, right? Unable to access the network. If all of a sudden you're unable to access the network, why? Right? What did you do? What was the last thing that it was done? We always ask these questions as technicians, right, to troubleshoot users. It's like, what happened? What was the last thing that you did? And try to go back into just like a doctor to find out what's going on. Application crashes and service problems. So if all of a sudden application crash for no reason and security apps stop working, if your computer is infected, one of the first things that they will try to do is to stop the antivirus software or the firewall in your computer. So if those software stop working, then the bad guys have open doors to do whatever they want. The OS and definition update failure. So if you're not able to, this is another thing. So they would try to prevent you from updating your antivirus definitions and the Windows update. So extremely important that your definition is up to date and that the operating system is up to date. File systems errors and anomalies. That's another indication. Desktop alerts and notifications. Every time you see something like this, like false alerts regarding antivirus protection. So if you go to a website, all of a sudden say, "Oh, your computer is infected," that is a scam. That is these people they're calling. Supposedly they are from Microsoft, telling you that you are infected, and that is not true. Microsoft will never call you or send you an email to tell you that your computer is infected. Okay, so you got to be very careful with those signs. When it comes to troubleshooting browser symptoms, pay attention to random or frequent pop-ups, right? Like telling you, hey, warning, potential security risk, that kind of stuff. Redirection, basically meaning that you type in a URL and it takes you somewhere else. So they can hijack your DNS, right? Or the search engine. We just talked about certificate warnings, right? Like sell sign or issuer not trusted. If you get any sign about a certificate on a browser, pay attention to that. The subject does not match the host, the fully qualified domain name. So if it doesn't match that, then again, make sure. So paying attention to this whole URL over here, telling you that hey, this is not secure, right? And be extremely careful about clicking on any links, especially if they are sent in an email. Expire or revoke certificate. Again, we'll talk about this. Okay. Um, these are always called on-path attacks by malicious proxies. So you could be going into a website, they redirect you to another site, which is like a proxy, right? Those are called man in the middle. They used to be called man in the middle attacks. Nowadays they are called on-path attacks. And again, these are common symptoms that your computer somehow has been compromised. Here is a list of best practices for malware removal. One, investigate and verify the malware systems. Do a Google search, find out what's going on. Quarantine the infected systems. Well, antivirus software normally does that. In your case, if you suspect that something's going on, unplug the network, the cable network. If it's a laptop, stop the wireless car. Turn off the wireless, right? If you suspect that there is a problem with your computer in the network, you have to make sure that you have no internet connection at all. Okay, just in case your computer is sending information to a command and control CNC systems that has been put up by the malicious guy. Disable the system restore in Windows. So Windows comes with this restore point that we have talked in class. So disable that because then the restore point could be infected. Remediate the infected systems. basically meaning update the anti-malware software, right? Run a complete scan of your computer to make sure that it is not infected. Sometimes the infection is so bad that you may have to do it in safe mode. So you have to boot up your computers in safe mode. Make sure that before you run safe mode that the computer has antivirus that is up to date, run in safe mode, and then run the antivirus software. There is also software out there. It's called the pre-installation environment that allows you to create like a Windows or a bootable system with antivirus software, right? So that you can go ahead and clean your C drive. Schedule scans and run updates. So again, in Windows, this is almost done automatically. You don't have to do this, but you could schedule scans to be done at regular times, right? Using the Windows scheduler. Enable the system restore and create a restore point in Windows. This is extremely important. Every time your computer is clean, every now and then, again, you should run a system restore. We talked about system restore at this point in class, so you should be familiar with that. If you're not, then find out what the system restore is and how to use it. And obviously, at a company level, education is key. Educating the end user is one of the most important things when it comes to all of these phishing attacks that we see on the internet. Because again, the only way you can countermeasure a phishing is being educated and detect those phishing attempts. It's very difficult to detect attacks with any other technology when it comes to phishing attacks, right? So really important to keep that in mind. And again, for the certification as well. So we talked about this, the Windows antivirus software. So if you go into the Windows antivirus and it says that if you see any red sign over there, said that threats were found, again, so take actions. Here is a malicious file or software, and then you get the choice. The antivirus software will ask you to either quarantine, remove it, or allow on the device, depending on what it is. So if it's something that you know is good, and it's just a false positive, but how do you know that is a false positive? Right? To be on the safe side, the first thing you should do is to quarantine that file first. Investigate, see what's going on, and then if you discover that it's malicious, then obviously you need to remove it. Okay, but again, this is something really important to keep in mind and to be vigilant about the antivirus software, and make sure that everything is fine. So if an infected systems is in quarantine, right? So again, you should be able to put it that. And what it does is that it prevent the use of privileged accounts, especially so privileged accounts are extremely dangerous. I'm talking about the administrator account in Windows, the root account in Linux, because those accounts have again the rights to do anything on the system. So what should you do in a company? You should isolate it from production network. So if a device is infected, make sure you don't log on as an administrator. Make sure you isolate that computer, disconnect it from the network, isolate and scan the removable media, right? Um, if that is the case. And we just talked about disabling the system restore, right? So turn off the backup services. And so every time that a computer is in quarantine, that is infected, you need to make sure you don't want to have a backup of that system. You don't want that system on the network. You don't want to create a restore point until that system is completely clean. Because if you back up, right, if you have a regular backup software that is running every night and the computer is infected, then it will back up that infected machine, or server. So when if in the future you need to get a backup, then you may bring that infected system back on the network. So really important to be careful about the backups when a system has been in quarantine or been infected. There are a lot of malware removal tools and methods on the internet. Again, start with what you have. The important thing is antivirus and anti-malware, the range of threat protection. Check for the latest update That's one of the most important things, right? Make sure that your antivirus software is up to date. Um, because every time, unless there is um, a zero exploit, a 0 day, right? This antivirus software, every time that there is a threat out there, they will be updated. Okay. You could also use what is called recovery mode, right? Which you could manual removal via antivirus tool or OS. So the running a scan, if the software finds something, it will ask you to remove it. So some stuff the system antivirus software will block it automatically and maybe even remove it automatically. Other things you have to go in and do it manually. And again, as I said mentioned before, in some cases you may have to run the computer into safe mode or the Windows pre-installation environments called the Windows PE to do that. And in some other cases, if the system is the infection may be so bad that your best bet is to do a complete Windows installation, just to make sure you back up your important files and run a antivirus software. Make sure they're clean. You uh, delete, remove the OS, and then you have to reinstall again. Sometimes there's no choice. So what are some of the techniques of some of the things that we can do to prevent malware infection? Well, we can configure on access scanning. Every time that you access a file, the file is scanned. That can be configured with your antivirus software. You can configure a schedule scan, so that, let's say, for example, you scan your computer every week. Sunday night when you go to bed, you can scan the computer. You can do that as well. Re-enable the system restoring services. So if you know that your computer is clean, make sure that the system restore is in place. Take a snapshot of your system, like a system restore, just in case you need to do that. And obviously, we talked about this and we will continue to talk. Educate the end user. There are general threat awareness training everywhere on the internet, YouTube, or you can have a specific training tailored to the company, or you can have a specific anti-phishing training depending on what's going on and what are the kind of things that you want to do. But again, so these are some ways that we can use to prevent malware infection. Okay, so this is the end of lesson 7 and the last topic in lesson 7. Review workstation security issues. We talked about malware vectors and payloads, the different type of viruses, a worm, a Trojan, ransomware, that kind of stuff. We talked about ransomware and crypto miners. We talked about things to troubleshoot the desktop and the browser symptoms, the slowness of the computer or the security software being disabled, or when you go to a website, it'll take you to somewhere else. So those are symptoms there. We talked about best practices for malware removal, using a quarantine, disconnecting the network, using the manual removal. We also talked about infective systems, and again in quarantine, we talked about removal tools that methods. Your antivirus software may have that, or you may be able to. There's a lot of other companies out there like Malwarebytes and Kaspersky and Sophos that have malware removal tools that you may need. And again, sometimes you may have to reboot your computer into safe mode. We also talked about some prevention malware infection, which is like use education is a great thing. Having your computers up to date, having your Windows system up to date. So those are ways of doing this. And as always, finally, go to your labs. Here you have two labs. Investigate and remediate a host where the security configuration has been compromised, and work independently to investigate and remediate a host where the security configuration has been compromised. Okay, two or more labs. In total, there are 4 labs in this lesson 7 that you must complete for this lesson.